I don't like to lecture. I like to discuss.
Susan,
Yes.
I had nose surgery, so I have black eyes and a cast, so I am not
Oh my goodness.
camera on.
What happened to you? I didn't even know.
Well, I walked into a glass door at Cantor Karras' house a few weeks
Oh
Oh,
no.
right.
and broke my nose.
Oh
So
my
that's the
God.
story. So they fixed it. So anyway, but no one needs to
Oh,
see me.
Oh,
You take
oh,
care.
bless your heart.
my brother-in-law did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Boy.
I guess, people should not wash their windows. The door.
Oh, good. They're welcome at my house then.
Such a thing is too clean.
Oh my God.
You can't hurt yourself in our windows.
So, Suze, I'd like to get the thing that you did last week.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll send it to you. Sorry.
Okay, whenever, no hurry.
Yeah. Okay, so it says there are 13 people and I only see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Come on, show yourself so I'm going to see who you are. Hi, Lorraine. Hi, Benjamin. Okay.
I may have to sign off early. We have a man coming to look at rebuilding my bathroom.
Okay. Okay.
And I don't trust Arnie with him alone.
All right. Let's see who else is coming. By the way, everyone, hi, Miriam. Nice to see you. Yes, I'll send it to you too, Kim. All right. What is it? Kimberly. Whoops.
Hi, Miriam.
Hi there. How are you, dear?
So good to see you, dear. I miss you.
Thank you.
Let's see. It's Kimberly at Druids. I love that. Druids Inc.
Excuse me, Rabbi, the Torah study is amazing. She is amazing. Your friend
Thank
is
you.
amazing. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, I just want to recommend if you're going to buy, so a Torah book is called a Chumash. You should all know that word, Chumash. Chumash is the way I was raised, but it's really Chumash. I mean, Chumash is more Yiddishy, but Chumash comes from the Hebrew word Chamesh, which means 5. And it's the 5 books of Moses is called the Chumash. You would spell it Chumash, like Chumash, but it's Chumash. And to me, the best Chumash you can get is the Eitz Chaim. Does this look backwards to you? Because it looks backwards to me.
No, it's not. It's front.
Okay.
No, it's fine.
It's the Eitz Chaim. It's from the Rabbinical Assembly. It's the conservative book. It has amazing, what the heck? Hold on. Amazing commentaries, and some of the authors include Chaim Potok, the author, the famous author. He's one of them who writes in it. And there's all kinds of beautiful, modern and classical interpretations. And when we studied in person, we did use this book, and I'm looking forward to maybe in the new year, the new secular year, starting to do some Torah study in person. I mean, it will be both. We'll be able to, you can either be online or come in person, but this is an amazing book, and I can't find it online in order to put it up there. So I'm going to share some stuff with you. But before we begin, let's say a blessing for studying Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah, to engage in the study of Torah. So also, I want to recommend an amazing website. It's called Sefaria, Sefaria, Sefaria.com. Sefaria or Sifria means a library, and it has almost every Jewish text. It has not only that, but like they have the whole Torah, they have the Talmud, they have the Tanakh, they have the Bible, all the Bible. But then you click a link and it has commentaries, midrash, modern comment, all kinds of things for every single sentence. It's incredible. So that also, if everybody we could study on that, it would be amazing. I mean, you look up and there's like 25 commentaries on a sentence from all these different sources. It's really fun to just go and look at it. And I read some of that in preparation for today.
Safari.com, excuse me, Rabbi, Safari.
No, Safaria.
This is a great website.
Yeah, SEF like Frank, ARIA. Safaria.
Thank you.
Okay. So I just want to start giving you sources. So we are in Parshat Lech L'cha. It's Genesis chapter 12. And this is the introduction of Abraham into the Torah. This is the part where Abraham hears the call. And we're going to look at the text in a minute. And this time I included it in Hebrew and in English because sometimes I want to look at the Hebrew to tell you, Penina knows Hebrew, but some of it is not exactly translated right. And I think it's fascinating. And Miriam knows Hebrew, of course. So to look at the different translations of it. But Abraham is called to leave his homeland and go to a land that God will show him, which we're going to look at in a minute. But this is the first time that a person is not exiled, like Adam and Eve had to leave the Garden of Eden, and Cain had to leave and wander, and the Tower of Babel. These are all myths, but if you look at it differently, the Tower of Babel is when the people tried to build a tower high enough to reach God. Ben, did you want to say something? Should I call you Benny or Ben or Benjamin? What should I call you? You going to tell me? Yeah, hold on. Okay, keep going. All right. So anyway, and that one, that's, a myth about how there are multiple languages. Everybody was working together to, for this sense of hubris. They were going to reach God, and then God gave them all these different languages. And the word babbling comes from the Tower of Babel in English. And then they couldn't communicate, and then it was a failure. It's also a satire on the ziggurats, which were these huge religious towers of Sumeria, the ancient culture of Sumeria. So it was kind of like poking fun at that idea that you could reach God by going really, really high, because in Judaism, God is everywhere and it's not necessarily up. So Abraham gets this call, and it's a spiritual call, and it's a call not to leave. It's more to go somewhere and to get benefits from it. So I'm now going to share my screen and show you, where is it? Lech L'cha. Okay, share. Okay, now I need to see people. Let me pull this down. How do I do this so I can see everyone? All right, hold on. Oh God, how do I do this to make it expand? All right, well, you'll have to call and then I'll find you. All right. So here's the first sentence. The Lord said to Abram, okay, so his name is not Abraham or Avraham, it's Avram at this time. And later, and his wife's name is Sarai, not Sarah. And that hey sound is also one of the signals of the presence of God. Just a hey can be the presence of God. So later on they change their names. But right now, this is the first time that they're ever connecting. And it says, go forth from your native land, from your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make you of you a great nation, and I will bless you. And I will make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. Okay, and I'll just read a little more, and then we'll come back together. I will bless those who bless you, and curse him that curses you, and all the families of the earth shall bless themselves by you. Okay, so. Thank you, my love. Okay, bye. Let's go to this, or stop share for a minute so I can. Okay, is this everybody? Yeah, all right. So, go. He's 75 years old. His wife is 65. He gets this call, and it was like the not like he heard a voice. It was, we could think of like, you suddenly have this need to do something to change your life in this drastic way. And there's all these midrashim about Abraham and how he knew that was God and how he looked at the world. There's that, I think it's a childish midrash. Who knows that midrash about the idols, that Abraham's father was an idol maker? Does anybody know that one? Okay, Penina, why don't you just share that one? You're muted.
It's like a tale,
Right.
the midrash comes out, it's like a story that was told, that his father was an idol maker, and one day Abraham looked around and figured that those idols are not gods, and they were being made to become gods, like statues, and he destroyed them, and he decided that that's not God. And
well, it was a little more than that. It was that, according to the midrash, he was playing around and he broke one, and then he put like a stick in another one, and his father came home and said, who broke this idol? And he said, that idol did it. And he said, well, how could that idol do it? They can't move. And he says, then how could that idol be God? You know what I mean? Logically, he looked at the world and he said, this is a palace. Is there no king in this palace? And then the midrash says that God said, I am the king in the palace. So Abraham had this call to leave. So what do you think it means to be a blessing? And you will be a blessing. What does that mean? What do you think God meant by that? You will be a blessing. Go there.
An example, or a person who makes things happen.
Okay. Any other ideas? What does it mean? Miriam?
I always thought it meant to be a blessing to others. That it's not enough to be a blessing. You must be, like in Hanukkah, you must be the light for others. It's not enough to just have a festival.
You must be a light for others. Okay, that's beautiful. Just one second. Anyone else have an idea of what it would mean? So is anyone a blessing? How do we be a blessing? It's a really beautiful idea of a very ancient text, to be a blessing to somebody. And in the Eitz Chaim commentary talks about, despite our small numbers, how in countries where Jews, this is the commentary, in countries where Jews are accepted and, respected and considered equal, the country usually prospers because they are tolerant of not just Jews, but of others. If they're tolerant of Jews, they're tolerant of others, and the country prospers. And if they're intolerant of Jews, ultimately, it's like that famous saying by the Protestant minister when they came for the Jews, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a Jew. When they came for the communists, I didn't say anything because I wasn't a communist. When they came for the workers, I didn't say anything because I wasn't. And then they came for everybody else and it was too late. So there's this idea that in societies that are tolerant and accepting of Jews, they tend to be tolerant and accepting of others. So there's that level. And then I personally feel that Israel is a blessing to the world. I mean, the inventions, the technology, I feel like they're the brain trust of the world because they spend 35% of their gross national budget on research and development, I read recently. Can you imagine? All on science, technology, improving things, and whatever they discover, they share. They share with the world. And sometimes, okay, I don't know what that is. And so this is the idea of a blessing. So that's the first thing. It says, you will be a blessing and I will make your name great. So in the ancient world, to have a good name, or even in the, not even so long ago, the Baal Shem Tov, the head of the Hasidic movement, is called the master of the good name. So it's two levels. It's his good name and also the good name of God, that he knows God's name. But this idea of having a good name means respect, integrity, honor. Now he says, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Why would God, here's his very first call to Abraham, tell him that people will curse him. Why would he even bring that up to say some will bless you and some will curse you? Why do you think that's in that text? What do you think the point of that is?
May I say?
Yeah.
I think because God's word, he spoke a blessing over Abraham and the Jewish people. And for those, the audacity of someone, that's why you just said nations that don't recognize us, they don't prosper. It's a universal law that God spoke, and there, because he knew there's going to be jealousy. He knew that we're chosen and we're special, and the world, not everyone's going to love us. He knows. So that's why it's a curse.
Okay, well, I think that's a good point. It's close to it in that no matter what, there's going to be people, going to this land is not going to be perfect. There's going to be adversity. There's going to be people who are jealous. Like Donna said, there are going to be people who aren't going to accept you because you're an immigrant. So there's this idea of the immigrant, of the stranger, that, through all time, there are going to be people who are not going to accept you just for who you are, just for moving. And we're talking about a land that's basically pasture land, some desert, some pasture land, not particularly urban. There were settlements or whatever. And so I think, nomads and shepherds did come in. But if we think in America about the classic rivalry and antagonism between the ranchers and the farmers, even in America, this idea of shepherds. So he's saying that's going to happen. You're going to leave. Okay, now let me ask you this. How many of you have heard a call and then totally changed your life or made a move or just completely, you said, it's your soul, it's your spirit, it's God, it's whatever, saying you have to make a change? I have. So I'm curious, have any of you? Cindy,
Sorry.
just a second. Cindy, no? No. Anybody have ever had that call to just make a change and gone for it? Yes, Kimberly. Do you want to unmute and do you want to tell us or?
I've had a call twice. The first time was to leave my first marriage. And I just said there was nothing wrong with him. Great guy, handsome guy. But there was just this sense that was not where I was supposed to be. And then when I closed my business 6 years ago, I had that same call that was not my world.
And did it work out?
Yeah. It was just this call to make a change, to leave and do something else. Because sometimes I think we all feel limited in our own possibilities or our own lives. And just to have this feeling of change it, take the risk,
Yes.
Take the leap.
To move, to change. And also, okay, anybody else? Merle and then Miriam.
I think since the beginning of the pandemic, I realized, one, that there's a lot I don't need or need to do, and got rid of a lot of toxicity in our lives, people, a place, changing congregations, not Wilshire, but one here. And I think that made a big difference in and it wasn't just us, it was our kids and their family too, and a lot of friends. I think that it just was like, it was time to do something about what we weren't happy with.
Thank you, Miriam.
And it made huge differences.
Miriam, you're muted.
I guess this was not exactly an epiphany or a call. It was there. I remember when it started, so perhaps it is a call, but then it was gradual. In my early 80s, which is decades ago, so it seems, I suddenly the word responsibility hit me hard, like with a hammer. Or perhaps it wasn't. I said to myself, I wish to no longer expect. I am taking myself out of the I expect mode, out of that entire category. I now must do something responsible. I do not want or expect my Judaism to do for me. I want to do for my Judaism. I was very fortunate to have been brought up in a very Jewish home. Folks were American, and they wanted all four children to speak Hebrew. They were all the products of day schools, and I myself am three generations. My own children went to day school, and my grandchildren. I need to do for others without sounding too much like Pollyanna here, in order to give myself, my interior, inner self satisfaction.
So that's interesting because Lech L'cha, the first line, is also it's like go forth, and also it's take yourself or go into yourself. And exactly what you're saying, there's an inner journey. There can be an external journey, like I became a rabbi after being a screenwriter. It was a complete, change, but I knew that I wanted to do that. Or there's an internal journey where it says, go inside, journey to the place I will show you spiritually, connect with the God place within you, and you will be a blessing. When you connect to your spiritual core within yourself, so this is not just to Abraham, but it could be to all of us to say, go within, connect with your soul, with your God essence, and then you will be a blessing. So let's just continue the text because it's interesting to see where it goes. Hold on, share. And Abraham went forth as the Lord commanded him, and Lot went with him. Suddenly we hear about this guy, Lot, his nephew, and he's a problem. I listen to Dr. Laura sometimes because I just like to hear people's problems, and I like to hear, what's going on. I'm very interested in human nature. And there are a lot of times when you hear people saying, my nephew is living with me. And she says, why is his nephew living with you? Oh, because his parents are drug addicts. They're in prison. They're in unfit or whatever. But Lot goes with him, and Lot turns out to have a lot of problems. Lots. And so who knows, maybe like Abraham's brother said, as long as you're going, take my son with you. Maybe he'll do better with you because he's not doing great with us. But we learn, he's the one who chose to live in Sodom. He could live anywhere in the land, and he chose to live in Sodom and Gomorrah. So he had a predilection for something, debauchery, sexuality, criminality, or whatever, because of all the choices, that was what he chose. So it says, yeah.
Susan, his father Haran died. So
he's dead by now? Okay, well then he took him.
Yes, and yeah, now when you're telling he was a problem, maybe he helped in that. Maybe the father couldn't handle him anymore.
Exactly, gave him a heart attack. So Lot went with him when he left Haran. And Abraham took his wife Sarai and his brother's son Lot and all the wealth they had amassed and the persons that they had acquired in Haran. And they set out for the land of Canaan. Okay, well, all right, let's finish this. When they arrived in the land of Canaan, Abraham passed through the land as far as the side of Shechem at the terebinth of Moreh. A terebinth is like a kind of an oasis. It's a collection of trees, and the Canaanites were then in the land. So let's go back for a minute to this idea of the persons they had acquired. So what do you think that means, the persons they had acquired? I'm going to stop this so I can see you. Benny. Yeah.
Slaves.
What?
Slaves.
Slaves is one. And there's another one. Susan Ehrlich, do you know? Because you usually know stuff. You're muted.
No, I don't know this, but maybe it's proselyte, acolytes. Or,
Exactly. Rashi says it was people they converted. It were people who had accepted the one God, the monotheists, that they acquired, and that Avram taught the men, and Sarah taught the women. Sarai at that time, her name was. And by the way, Sarai means, and Sarah means princess. So she could have been a nobility, or, there's a lot of speculation because later Abraham says she's my sister. And then they say, were they really have sisters? It was saying it or whatever. We don't know. I tend to doubt it, to be honest with you. I don't think the rabbis had that in mind. But so we know in Egypt that was common for nobility and pharaohs and the leaders to marry to keep the bloodline pure. Ultimately, it destroyed the bloodline, but by marrying in the family. But anyway, Sarai was considered, according to the rabbis, an equal. She was teaching the women, and the men were being taught by Abraham. And these are people who said, "Let's go. We're going to this new place. I've heard this call." A community, and so they all went together. And it's very interesting that this is written because, like the rabbis say, well, the Canaanites are in the land. Well, how would Moses know this? Or, who wrote this? That at this point, the Canaanites are in the land. It's kind of a hint that, this was written after the fact, that this was written by, a biblical writer, one of the writers of the Torah, setting up the story. And there were Canaanites there. And he actually, Avram, had a good relationship with them. He knew kings, he went to war with them, some against them, some with them. He aligned with them. So he was actually politically, diplomatically, and kind of in the region, a respected man. At home, he was really weak, and we're going to be analyzing, his marriage and what happened. So now we come to this.
Wow.
He comes to Canaan, and they're there for we don't even know how long. Hold on, but this is where do I do share? Okay, share. And hold on, we go here. I'm going to move you over here. And then God said, I will assign this land to your offspring. And Abraham built an altar because that was the way people connected, though God spoke to Avram. And he pitched his tent east of Beth El. Okay. And he goes slowly toward the Negev. And no sooner does he settle, but there was a famine in the land. So it's very odd that he gets there, he schleps all the way. Now, Haran was like Iraq. So he went from Iraq to the land of Israel, all the way down to the Negev. That must have taken a good 6 months at least, because they walked, with their flocks or whatever, however long it takes. And there's a famine. So right away, there's a famine, and Abraham goes down to Egypt, for the famine in the land was severe. So right now, Egypt is considered an ally. It's considered a positive place. It's going to be a place of slavery. But right now, he says, oh, well, let's go to Egypt. So I find it curious. And does anybody have any opinion what the point is of God sending Abraham all the way there, and then he has to leave right away? What do you make of that? Now, he's there, I don't know, not very long. It's the very next thing. Any ideas of what do you make of that? What is it saying about life or about this land, do you think? Merle?
Life is uncertain. Don't plan on being in any position too long, depending on what the circumstances are.
Right. And you can be connected to God, communicating with God, get all these promises, but still life can be difficult. There's nature, there's the world or whatever. So he goes down to Egypt. Okay. And what does he say to his wife? As he's about to enter Egypt, he says to his wife, I know what a beautiful woman you are. If the Egyptians see you and think she is his wife, they will kill me and let you live. Please say that you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that I may remain alive thanks to you. So, first of all, the rabbis say that Abraham didn't really, first of all, she was 65, but she was beautiful. You know, this woman is like ageless because she's going to have a baby at 90. She's beautiful. And suddenly he looks at her differently because other men are going to be looking at her. And what the tradition was apparently in Egypt is that if there was a beautiful woman, they would take her, confiscate her, and she would go into Pharaoh's harem. So, and that's exactly what did happen, as we're going to read. But what do you think about him asking her this? Let's just finish the thing. And when Abraham entered Egypt, the Egyptians saw how beautiful the woman was. Okay, I want you to notice something really interesting. And Pharaoh's courtiers saw her and praised her to Pharaoh, and the woman was taken into Pharaoh's palace. And because of her, it went well with Abraham. He acquired sheep, oxen, asses, male and female slaves, she, asses, and camels. Okay. This is pretty incredible. If you looked at the text, and then I want to hear your opinion, he says, Abraham says to Sarai, I know how beautiful are. The minute she goes into Egypt and the men see her, she loses her name and she becomes the woman. She's a sexual object. She has no identity. She's no longer Sarai. She's the woman. HaIsha. She's just a female, and the woman is taken into Pharaoh's harem, taken into her. So she's loses her identity. She's just a beautiful body for Pharaoh. So there's a lot of controversy among the rabbis about Abraham's request. So what do you think about this request? And do you think it was justified? What do you think about Sarah saying? She doesn't say anything, but it happens. So let's kind of speculate some dialogue, or what do you think actually happened there? And what do you think about
May I say?
Yes.
I think that Abraham loved Sarai very much. I do not like the perspective and the objectivity of a woman just being a body, and their perception of her and her losing her identity and just a sexual object. But I think he was afraid for himself and for her, and didn't want her virtue to be touched. And so he also didn't want to die either. And he knew the Egyptians. So that's my take on it.
Okay, so he didn't want her virtue to be touched, but basically she was going to be raped.
And he knew it. And why? And number one, why did he go to Egypt if he knew that?
Well, I guess it was the closest place with food. I mean, there's an interesting.
Okay.
Interesting.
It's like he protected himself, and he really didn't care what happened to her. He knew what was going to happen to her.
Oh my God.
And the thing is, he said that if they think you're my wife, they'll kill me. But if they think you're my sister, they'll just put you in Pharaoh's harem.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
right.
Doesn't the Bible say that if you're going to, in Judaism, if somebody's going to take somebody's life, you have to die. You can't. I'm not saying this. You know the commandment that.
No, it's not a commandment. It's in the Talmud.
It's in the Talmud. Okay.
If you're going to date this 2,000 years later, but. Because this supposedly took place at 1800 BCE, but it's not that. It's if you're told to kill someone.
Yes.
Not.
In a way, he was really putting her up to kill her. Well, no, I guess he wasn't. He was afraid he'd get killed, so he thought she'd just become a concubine.
Right. And okay, yeah, okay, Penina.
I think we are going back to this thing that acquiring that religion, that new religion, was a process. When he gets too close to Egypt, he actually acts or is telling her to behave like, not like what Judaism was standing for, or it was assimilation to the Egyptian rituals, that you are allowed to marry your sister. Therefore, she's not yet taken or whatever, she's just his sister, but she's also royalty. And the whole idea was that once you take over somebody from another royal nation, you conquer the nation. Actually, it's like Solomon took the daughters of all the other kings next to him, and that's how he maintained peace. He married all the daughters of all the kings around him. He had 1,000 wives, and he achieved peace, and he actually built the temple. So I think it's an assimilation. He tried to assimilate to the Egyptian customs, and the whole idea of the word Avraham became later. Right now is Avram, is in a process. He is not there yet.
Good.
And also, Ella, and also in the beginning, when he got to the country, the first thing he did, he dug wells. And that's how they assigned territory. Wherever you drew a well and you built an altar, was supposed to be a landmark that you own it. So he tried. He dug wells, but there was no water. So survival was dictating the events.
I
So
like
now
that very much.
he's going down to Egypt.
Yes.
It's either that or die. And he's got the flax and they got to eat, and water didn't come out. So, okay. So God who promised him this land, now he's on a shvita. How do you call it? He's on a, he's on a sabbatical.
Yeah.
So you got to survive. So you go down there and he tries to use this assimilation, and he figures that's not a bad thing. Even if she's his sister, she's available. And
So it's okay to
can,
marry a king for peace,
and
right?
maybe Pharaoh is going to figure that this is going to be like a peace treaty or something.
Well, I think that's very interesting, and I think you're right. You know, there was no Judaism; there was just some monotheism at this point, and a blessing. I mean, there was no requirement, no mitzvot, except to have children, which is very hard for them. Interestingly enough, that's about it at this point. And the custom, and then also I read a commentary where they said he figured if he died, she'd really be abandoned. So maybe there was a plan later to buy her back, because she certainly benefited from having this beautiful sister. As you said, it is like a peace treaty. Like Solomon's favorite wife was Pharaoh's daughter, actually, and he built her a palace and a whole thing. And maybe Abraham thought, if you're my wife, they may just kill you, and me. So, but still, I think it's interesting. Sarah doesn't say yes or no. It happens. There's no thing, and she loses her Sarah-ness and be Sarai, and she's now the woman. And that's how the Egyptians saw her. I don't know how, and Abraham got all of these flocks and slaves and everything for her. So obviously she was valuable, and then of course, because this is the Torah, God steps in and saves her. Panina, what did you want to say?
According to Don Yitzhak Abarbanel, who did a lot of commentaries of the Torah after the diaspora from, the exodus out of Spain, Gerush Sfarad, we were thrown out of there.
Yeah,
the Inquisition. Yeah. So he said that according to him, he thinks that she was a tzadikah, that she was a righteous woman.
Right.
He recognized the whole idea of being a blessing. Bracha comes from the word berech, when you are on your knees, recognizing the greatness of somebody higher than you. So when when God told him you're going to be a blessing, it's a process. The recognition of this higher power. So according to Abarbanel, she was a tzadikah. She was a righteous woman because she recognized the potential of this person that she is married to, and the promise that God promised him that he will become a nation. And therefore, she was willing to help him.
Okay, I
At
like
that
that.
point. Yeah.
Brad?
Well, I've got a different take on this. I mean, the philosopher Marcel Mauss, M-A-U-S, has explained that in the ancient world, it was much of the relations between different groups was governed by a gift exchange philosophy. And what a gift does is it obligates the other party to reciprocate. And Sarah is property, and she is gifted to the Egyptians. And in exchange, he receives back, because of that obligation that's been created, he receives all kinds of goodies back for the gift that he is given. So we've entered into a gift exchange ritual. And I know it seems odd to us gifting a person, but I think she was perceived to be property.
I think she was, but his wife, I mean, I don't know.
Hence how she becomes the woman,
right?
As opposed to a person with the name Sarai.
Yes, but then we see that God disagrees with this behavior in this transaction, and we're going to look at that right now.
I had something just to add to it. I get it with the gifts, but Abraham or Abram asked Sarah, and she participated in this. And I don't know that there was any formal exchange. If I give you my wife's sister, then you're going to make me famous. He was hiding low, Abraham. And the other thing, I think, in a broader sense, less literal, this is an enduring conflict between human life and human dignity. And we saw this all through life. And then also in the Holocaust, when some women, Jewish women, chose to be spies, sacrificing some of their dignity with men, the Nazis, but in order to help their people and save lives. So I think the broader conflict is that, and how one would choose. And some say, well, Abraham should have trusted in God, and God doesn't.
Well, it's interesting, and I want to just continue, and then I'll let you talk. If you say she was a tzadikah, she was a righteous woman, I mean, God seems to agree, because he makes sure nothing happens to her. And let's just take a look at this, where
and then he blesses her with a child later on.
But there's a lot of aggravation before then.
Right.
Lord afflicted Pharaoh and his household with mighty plagues on account of Sarah, the wife of Abraham. So I found the commentary from Rashi. He says that his genitals became inflamed. All of their genitals became inflamed, so they couldn't have sex, and that was the affliction. And Pharaoh kind of then said, what's going on? And then this is all like Rashi's a commentator. She told him, well, actually, I'm not his sister, I'm his wife. And that's what's going on. And then Pharaoh is, oh, by the way, he's very angry, and he says, why did you say she's my sister so that I took her as my wife? Now here's your wife, take her and be gone. Go. And Pharaoh put men in charge of him, and they sent him off with his wife and all that he possessed. But he didn't take anything back. And according to Rashi also, he gave Sarah a slave girl, one of his daughters. You can imagine he had many wives and many daughters. And as Brad said, they were property. And this was Hagar. Hagar, who becomes the mother of Ishmael, who becomes Abraham's wife. He said that she, Sarah is such a high level woman, so righteous, so great, that this is what my daughter should do. She should serve her. So this is, Midrash and Rashi, that Sarai got Hagar at this point. And we know she was Egyptian. And how did she get an Egyptian servant? That she was a daughter of Pharaoh. So this is like the first hint of their relationship. And then all this other stuff happens. And then we have, because I'm kind of looking at their marriage and their relationship. And then we're go to time passes. It's been 10 years. And Sarai, Avram's wife, bore him no children. She had an Egyptian maidservant whose name was Hagar. This is Hagar. Now, Hagar, one of the meanings of the word Hagar is Hagar, the stranger. She was an alien. She was a stranger, and she was different. And we have no idea how old she was, but she was young. We assume she maybe was in her 20s. And Sarai said to Avram, look, God has kept me from bearing. Consort with my maid. What does he say? Go to, in Hebrew, it's bona. Go, please go to my maidservant. She says, please go there. And maybe, this is interesting, I shall have a son through her. Now, in the Hebrew, it's abaneh, mimena. And that's such a double entendre because bana means to build, and ben is a son. So maybe I will build, maybe I will have a son. It's like a double entendre from her. And Abraham listened to her voice. So I think it's interesting in Hebrew, wow. Abraham listened to her voice. So her voice could have been sad, could have been begging him. Maybe he didn't want to. She was desperate. I love it. It says in English, he didn't Sarah's request. No, it says Avram vayishma, and he listened, Shma Avram lekol Sarai, to the voice of Sarah. And so there's something in Sarah's voice that convinced him.
Oh my gosh.
So Sarai, Avram's wife, took her maid Hagar, the Egyptian. And I think it's interesting that they don't just say Hagar, but Hagar, the Egyptian. And after Abraham had dwelt in the land for 10 years, and he gave her, let me see, and she gave her to Abraham. And okay, now in English, it says, gave her to her son Avram as a concubine, but in Hebrew, it says he gave her husband Abraham to her as a wife. The word is Isha, which is wife. So I don't know why, I say this all the time, translation is commentary. It's like they've decided, but no, it says Isha, he gives her husband, this woman, as his wife. Okay. Vayavo, and Abraham went to Hagar, and she got pregnant. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was lowered in her esteem. No, it says vatakal, she became light. In other words, she wasn't that she lowered, like she became less important. She was diminished in her eyes. She was diminished in her eyes. And one more, and then we're going to discuss. And Sarah said to her husband, to Avram, the wrong done me is your fault. I put my maid in your bosom, and now that she is pregnant, I want to see what it says. Akel, I am lessened. I am not lowered. I am less important. I am lightened. I'm lightweight in her eyes. Now let God decide between you and me. Okay, one more. And Abraham said, this is a husband thing. This weight is in your hands. Do what you want to do. I see lo hatov be'enecha. That's interesting. Do as you think is right or good. And Sarah tortured her and she ran away. Okay, so let's talk about this for a minute. Why would Sarah say this is your fault? Why is this his fault? What do you think? Brad?
Well, I come back to the gift exchange. In the first instance, we have a gift exchange with Pharaoh that went wrong. God disapproves of gift exchanges of other human beings. And you said Abraham gave Hagar.
No, Pharaoh gave.
No, but Hagar as the wife. It was. We can go back. Can you go back to the text?
Sarah gave him to
Sarah
Abraham
gave him Hagar
as a wife.
as a wife. That was another gift. And it's another gift exchange of a human being that goes wrong. So I think the message in these two passages is gift exchanges are good, but not of other human beings.
That's fantastic. So, but why? Okay, I love that. Why does she say to Abraham, this is your fault? This is your fault. I blame you for this. Is it rational? Or Penina?
Okay. The thing is that it was a men's society. She wasn't just his half-sister, which the Parshanim think that it was the case. She was really his half-sister. Okay. But the idea is that he is allowed to marry more than one woman, but the women were not. So he or she is a part of this culture. So your fault because he's allowed. Do you know that in the 14th century, a letter came out from a guy by the name of Ben Yehuda. The last name was Ben Yehuda, not the Ben Yehuda who wrote the thing. Right. He came out with a letter that was sent to all the Jews in all the countries in the Middle East that they are not allowed to marry more than one wife.
That was Rabbi Meir.
No.
I thought that was Rabbi Meir.
Oh, okay. They weren't allowed to marry more than one wife.
Right.
The letter didn't reach Yemen because Yemen was very far, secluded. The letter never reached them. When they were brought to Israel, they all came with more than one wives.
So
women were crying. They didn't want to leave the husband. And the state of Israel didn't know what to do with them because it was a really pitiful. They had no education. They couldn't hold jobs. They came, many of them barefoot, many children that belonged to the same husband. So they decided to leave them alone. But the generation that came out of this generation that were brought to Israel directly from Yemen had to honor the law that no more than one wife. So it's still a man's world. It still was a man world. And she blames him because he can do it. And
but it was her idea. It was her idea.
It doesn't matter because that was also there is a saying that if you save one soul from a Jew, it's like you saved the whole nation.
Right.
So the story is that the whole nation is going to come out of this guy. And here she is helping this prophecy that God said, I'll give you the land. He didn't say to her, he said it to him. And she was not just a plain member of his family. She was also a princess. There was a proof then when he was about to sacrifice Isaac, and she heard about it, she was like in a shock.
I know.
But she left them afterwards when she found out. She left them and she went to Hebron. She had her own tent, her own domain in Hebron. When he came to Hebron or to her, it used to say, Vayavo Avraham Ohala, to her tent.
Okay,
she
but
had her whole place. She wasn't just a plain person.
No, she wasn't, but I'm still wondering,
Yeah.
So you think it's his fault because this is the custom that he could have more than one wife, even though it was her suggestion, you're saying, because she felt obligated to propagate and help fulfill the blessing of having more children. Okay, anybody else have any ideas? Susan?
Yes, I'm thinking, first of all, initially I think it's not his fault, it's her fault because she put Hagar before him. So that seems like the obvious thing. So figuring out why she'd say that. He was master, and it could be she was implying you're too lenient with Hagar. You're not really, and you're also following the fact that you're giving her credence and precedence because she bore you a child. And maybe that's also a way for the following thing where he banishes her, Hagar. And that spurs Abraham to do something.
Well, yes. And then the commentaries, and I think it's Rashi, says, you're not defending me. You're not
Right.
speaking up for me. You know, you see it sometimes. I've, heard about it or whatever, like, the kid is rude to the mother and the father doesn't do anything. Or in my house, if you were rude to my mother when I was growing up, my father would say, don't you dare talk to your mother like that.
Right.
Who do you think you are? You may not talk to your mother. And Abraham never, Hagar was taunting her, mocking her, ignoring her. And, perhaps Abraham was besotted by her beauty and by her fertility. She's carrying my child. So, and I've been waiting, I'm 85 now and I'm waiting for a kid. And so she's a beautiful young girl with his child, but she's saying, you've let me down. I personally think she's really upset because after what I did for you in Egypt,
Right.
and what are you doing now? I, allowed them to take me to the harem to save you, and you can't even stand up for me when this girl is rude. I'm really upset with you.
Mhm.
So, I think the fault is that the mistreatment by Hagar, and Abraham seems to be not very good in the family relationships. He's better out with the kings and the sacrifices and doing all that, but at home with the women, with the family dynamics, he's not very strong at all. And then what does he do? He washes his hands of it. Well, you take care of it. Do whatever you think is right. I'm not gonna. Yeah, I like what you said, Brad, that she blames him because she's following his example of giving a person as a gift and it backfired. Yeah, you said that's another thing. I love this idea that it's telling us we can't gift human beings. And also, I'm sure Hagar was not thrilled with the idea that, when you have a slave, because Rachel and Leah did the same thing with Jacob, and she has a child with your husband, you can claim that child as yours. So she can say, this is my child and I'm taking it away from you. So Hagar had her own issues. And Sarai, the word is really like tortured her, tormented her, and she ran away. She ran away to the desert and she didn't know where she was going, but she was running away. So let's just see, because now this is the first God, an angel, speaks to Hagar. He's not spoken personally to Sarah. He spoke to Eve, a little bit, like, what did you do? But other than that, God has not spoken to a woman. And here he speaks, or an angel of God, and then it's kind of like, is it an angel? Because the angel speaks in the first person. So where's the share? To look at this, and then we're going to finish the class. So we go here. She ran away, and an angel of the Lord, Malach Adonai, an angel of God, or a messenger of God, because they're the same, found her by a spring of water in the wilderness on the road to Shur, which is, I don't know where that is, but anyway. And Hagar, slave of Sarah. So it's Hagar Shifchat Sarai. So she's reminded she's an Egyptian, she's a slave. Where are you running? Where have you come from and where are you going? She doesn't know where she's going because she says, I am running away from my mistress Sarai. She doesn't have a destination. Maybe she thinks I'm going back to Egypt. And the angel of the Lord said to her, go back to your mistress and submit to her harsh treatment. We could talk about that in a minute. And the angel of the Lord said to her, I will greatly increase your offspring, and they shall be too many to count. So here's a similar blessing that Abraham gets, that she's getting personally, not Sarah. You're going to be the matriarch of a nation. And the angel of the Lord. Now it's interesting because you see how it says, and the angel of the Lord, and the angel of the Lord, and the angel of the Lord. So some commentaries say there were 3 different angels, and that's why they did it 3 times, because in the Torah, everything has a reason. They kept appearing, or it was one, said to her, behold, you are with child and shall bear a son. Okay, we know she had a child and will bear a son. And so then there's another commentary that said, which is really harsh on Sarah, but I think it's interesting, that she was so horrible to her that Hagar miscarried. And this is the second child that she's with. That's why the angel says to her, behold, Hine, here you're pregnant. Because she didn't know, because she had lost the first one, is a suggestion. We don't have to accept it, but it's interesting. And you shall call him Ishmael, Yishmael, Shema, God heard, God heeds, for the Lord has paid heed to your suffering. Now, again, this is a wrong translation. He shall be a wild ass of a man. It doesn't say that. It says, para Adam. He'll be wild. He'll be wild. And his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him. And he shall dwell alongside all of his kinsmen. And when they say he's wild, they mean what the rabbis say is, you are a slave. He's going to be free, wild and free. He's going to live in the desert. He's going to be a hunter. He's going to ride horses or donkeys. He's no one is going to be able to contain him. He will be his own guy, and he'll live with his people. And as you know, the Islam and the Muslims believe they are all descended from Hagar and Ishmael and Abraham. That Abraham is their patriarch through Ishmael. And she says, and she called the Lord who spoke to her, you are El Roi, God of seeing. You see me. You see me. This is and she names the well of the living one who sees me. And she goes back. So this idea of what so important, let me end the share, stop share, of being seen, of being heard. But why does they say go back? Why do you think they say, the angel says go back? Any idea?
I think I know.
Why?
Because in the end of the scheme of the story, there are kinsmen, there are brothers from Hagar. The story in Egypt with the Pharaoh giving Sarah giving Hagar to Abraham and the baby being born. God's ultimate plan is for see how Abraham heard Sarah's voice. There's an angel there that goes to visit Hagar and brings her back. There's an angel who has a voice who brings peace. That's all I'm going to say.
That's interesting that things will get better maybe, or I don't know. What do you think about this going back? Perhaps because you're going to die here. You don't know where you're going. You're a pregnant girl. You're lost. You don't know. You got to go back and you'll have a son, and that should be your comfort. You'll have the son and he will grow up. And as we know, and we're going to end on this, in the next Parshat, he has the son, he's circumcised, it's Ishmael, and then she has Isaac, and ultimately Sarah throws her out again. I mean, you may study that next week. But we know way down the line, when Abraham dies, Ishmael and Isaac stand together and bury him. So the brothers did not have the conflict. It was the mothers had the conflict.
Rabbi?
Yes.
I think that Hagar is, at least I'm seeing her as much more important than I've seen her before. I think about that she has the hay in her name.
Oh, that's interesting.
Speak to God. And she has the power to name things, which I think is very important. And so her role is not just a slave girl. It's really a major person that I think we overlook.
I think you're right. She's a matriarch. And in the next Parsha, when they do leave, she does go to Egypt, and it says she finds him a wife. and and he marries and they live well, after she's kicked out again. But it's an incredible saga. And I want to tell you how much I enjoyed studying with you this afternoon. And Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Rabbi.
And I'll see you again soon.
When
Thank you.
Sarah dies, it goes back to Hagar.
Thank you, Penina.
Shefa.
Penina, you're so smart.
Thank you. So are you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.